very warm welcome for Daniel Priestley.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I just started a talk with which is fine in most environments, but at a speaker conference where like everyone's learning to be a professional speaker, starting a talk with is like a terrible thing to do. My actual thing that I do is I'm an entrepreneur, so my whole background is entrepreneurship. I started a company at age 21 in Australia. You can hear from my accent that I'm Australian. And a big part of how we grew the business and developed the business was we brought in top speakers to bring crowds of people to our launch events, and we had really interesting key people of influence and authors and entrepreneurs and those sorts of people come and take the stage. And then as a result of that, our team would launch products, grow businesses, build brands. You know, we built a really successful business. As a result of getting the right speakers to our quarterly events, we ended up doing about $1.3 million in our first year of business, very profitably. We did over $400,000 of profit, and then we really rapidly grew. So I was 21, and then before age 25, we hit $11 million worth of sales, and it was largely event driven. So we'd do a lot of launch events, rollout events, demo events of what we were doing. And from about 21 to 22, 23, I would get up on stage and introduce the speakers, and that was kind of like my introduction to speaking, just kind of, you know, doing the first 5 minutes and bringing the speaker to stage. And then we did a particular rollout event where we had 10 speaking engagements over 2 weeks with one particular speaker, and he gave the same talk most nights, and I sat through it most nights, and I'd heard it a few times, and he said, for a particular event with about 60, 70 people, he said, "Dan, really bad news. My father's gone into hospital, and we've got 60, 70 people about to arrive and do the event. You've seen the presentation 10 times. Do you want to just apologize for me and do the presentation?" I'm like, shit, wow. You know, it's different to do 5 minutes at the beginning versus a 2-hour presentation, I think it was at the time. But I did the 2-hour presentation, and we actually got the same result. So this exact same result that would normally happen, we got a good result, and I ended up having that experience of feeling confident that I could do this. So I did it again, and I did it again, and because our business was growing so fast, I realized that actually that was a very high value role that I could play within the business, leading from the front, being the CEO of the company, but also the guy out the front doing the demo. I could also bring in speakers to speak alongside, and in that year, we booked 174 events with an average of 300 people at each event, and I spoke 174 times in 1 year. So it was this really mad baptism of fire into the world of speaking, where suddenly I was up on stage, 3, 4, 5 times a week, giving talks, talking to about 1,000 to 1,500 people every single week. So I got over my fear of public speaking by being thrown into it in that way. And it accelerated my business. I never got paid to speak at that time. I was just kind of speaking to grow the business. The business grew very rapidly up to about $11 million in revenue. And then I sold the business and I came to London. And I did arrive with a credit card and a suitcase. I'd never been above the equator. It was my first trip, sort of big trip. And I arrived here, and we launched a new business, and yeah, it was on a credit card. It was a pretty reasonable credit card, to be fair. It wasn't like a £500 credit card. I think it was about a £40,000 limit, but it was still it still wasn't a massive budget for starting a business, and it was also on 55-day terms, so you had to turn the money around really fast. So I launched a new business, and it took off again. And we grew from a complete standing start, just an idea, in 2006 to a £4 million business in our first 2 years, starting just with a credit card that had about a 40 grand limit. And once again, it was all about speaking. So I went back to bringing speakers to the stage. I'd taken a contract with a guy called Roger Hamilton. Has anyone heard of Roger? So Roger, I brought him to the UK. He'd never really done much in the UK, and I launched Wealth Dynamics here. Has anyone heard of a guy called John DeMartini? Yep, so John DeMartini, I brought him in, and we ran the biggest breakthrough experience events. And you would have heard of, obviously, Dragon's Den. So like James Caan, who's from London. We ran a series of events with James Caan. We ran a series of events with Anita Roddick's daughter and the founders of Innocent Drinks and all these kind of interesting people. So we're basically running lots and lots of talks, and along the way I start doing a lot of speaking. As I say, I think of myself as an entrepreneur more than a speaker, but I start doing a lot of talks, so I built my confidence in speaking that way. And I think I've calculated about something like 12 to 1,500 talks that I've given. If I work it out at about 80 or 90 talks a year for the last 15 years, comes out at about 1,200 plus talks. So I've ended up doing a fair bit of speaking along the way now. My current business is morphed into a business accelerator called Dent. We develop entrepreneurs who stand out, scale up, and make a positive impact in the world. We've got some great partners, some great, excellent entrepreneurs. And it really, a big part of that was built off the back of a book that I wrote called Key Person of Influence, which was actually about the speaking profession. It was launched, that book was, the insights in that book came from the insights as how I was choosing speakers and how I was picking the people to put on stage. We were paying speakers between £5,000 and £10,000 a talk, and you've got to get good at picking who's going to be good value for £5,000 to £10,000, because if you do a 20 city or a 20 talk rollout, adds up real fast. And especially you've got venues and speaking costs and all of those sorts of things. So I had to develop a methodology as to how I would choose speakers and how I would pick the people that we would put on stage. And actually that formed the basis of the book, Key Person of Influence. I'm just going to skip forward a bit here. So 1,250 talks I think I've given. So tonight I'm going to talk about the three key things that most people worry about when they get into speaking and delivering talks. So that would be no gigs, that they can't get booked, not getting paid to speak or not figuring out how to make any money out of speaking, and giving horrific talks. So that would be, if you have a combination of things, I'm guessing that would be the three things you'd want to solve. And I'm really, really, really happy for you to interrupt me at any time and ask questions. My preference would be that it morphs into a two-way conversation. I've got loads of slides, we can talk through the slides, but my preference would always be that we just connect and have a chat. So I'll start chatting, but if a question comes up, we can just totally go off on a tangent and deviate and all of that sort of stuff. Here's the common mistakes that I see new speakers making. Big mistake number one would be seeking clarity. So the idea with that one is waiting for a bolt of lightning to hit you of like, what's my thing and how do I get clear? And really, the true value is not in getting clear yourself, but helping other people get clear about something. So the real question is not, how do I get clear about my own life? The real question is, what content have I got or what can I share that helps other people get clear about a problem they're needing to solve? So rather than seeking clarity, delivering clarity. The next one would be seeking confidence. So a lot of people say, I need to be really confident to get up on stage and have a lot of confidence. And once that confidence hits me, then I will feel ready to get up on stage and get booked and all of those sorts of things. And realistically, the people who get speaking gigs are not people who are confident, they're people who are credible. So rather than seeking confidence, you should be seeking to be credible in the marketplace and build points of credibility. I've found, strangely, that even after 1,250 talks, sometimes I don't have a huge degree of confidence in my ability to give good talks. Sometimes I get nervous. Sometimes I think, I'm not. What am I even going to talk about? And sometimes I'm just bursting with confidence, and I just kind of walk on up and away it goes. But strangely, by the way, I feel way more confident in front of massive audiences than small audiences. So put me in front of 2,000 people with bright lights in my face and I'm totally fine with that. But smaller ones, it's kind of like, okay, that's a bit of a different vibe. So I don't know why that is, but that's a funny one. Low capacity. So I see a lot of people who are not thinking through all the different ways they could monetize their talks, and therefore they go for the model of, I just want to get paid to speak. And the business model of, I just want to get paid to speak, give me $1,000 and I'll come and speak, that's not a great business model. It's a very rare opportunity that those speaking gigs present. It's almost always indirect speaking fees or indirect payments that kind of is how you get paid. For example, building a business off the back of speaking, where the business is making money and the more you speak, the more clients you get, the more business you get, the more talented employees you get. And actually, the speaking leads to a lot of business where you're not being paid directly to speak, but you're building a business off the back of speaking would be indirect. Low cut through, so sounding like everyone else, looking like everyone else, and then low collaboration, not doing doing everything on your own. Great speakers actually hunt in packs, so they have several speakers who all talk on a particular topic and they sell each other in. They work with big organizations. They get sponsors who sponsor talks where 3 or 4 of them go and speak all at once. You'll actually see the same speakers appearing on the same stage quite regularly as a set, and that's actually because they've collaborated. They've figured out how to partner as well. So the methodology for getting over this is pitching, publishing, products, profile, and partnership. That will actually get rid of all of those 5 big mistakes. And what you'll end up with is the trifecta of getting gigs, getting paid, and delivering smashing talks. So that's what we want to get to. So let's talk getting gigs. So the first thing with getting gigs is pitching for gigs. So very, very rarely, especially if you're not famous, if you're not really well-known speaker already, it's you who has to go pitching for gigs. You've got to go and call conference organizers, talk to people who put on events, and pitch yourself forward as a potential speaker. And typically, you'll have 1 to 2 minutes to be able to do that and deliver a pitch as to why they should put you on their stage, those kind of things. And if you run conferences, you get a lot of people pitching you. So you've got to have a good pitch as to how why someone should put you on the stage. Often people will say, "Tell me a bit about yourself." Now, this is a real trick question, because if you think that translates to "tell me a bit about yourself," you're very much mistaken. This is "tell me a bit about what you can do for me. How are you going to make this a successful talk?" So the worst responses I get all the time when people say, "Oh, I'd like to be a speaker, I'd like to come and speak at your conferences," I'll say, "Well, tell me a bit about what do you do?" And I get this. I'm a bit all over the place at the moment. I wear multiple hats. I'm doing several things in the business improvement space. Some of it's my existing business. Some of it's like, whoa. What do you do? Well, I started out selling printing equipment in the 80s, and that led me to an interesting role with research at a PLC in the 90s. I ended up doing a year in Bristol, and then I moved to Stoke-on-Trent in 1992. It's like, whoa. What do you do? I'm a life coach. I bet you've heard that before. Everyone's a life coach these days. I'm actually finding it a bit hard to get clients at the moment. Are you getting clients? Maybe Brexit's the thing that's scaring people off. Maybe not Brexit, right? So 3 pitching rules. Number 1, it's not therapy, right? So when someone says, "Tell me about yourself," this is not an opportunity to tell them about yourself. This is an opportunity to deliver a great pitch. Number 2, it's not your Wikipedia page. We don't need to go back to 1980 in order to deliver a good answer to that question. And pitch for what you want, not what you don't want. If you say I've got no time, I've got no time, I've got no time, people will hear that you've got no time, so they won't send you any opportunities, and then you'll be spending all your time chasing opportunities and you'll have no time. If you say I've got no money, I've got no money, I've got no money, people hear that you don't have any value to offer, so therefore they're not going to send you any high value clients. So you pitch into existence the things that you want or don't want. Basically, whatever you pitch for, you get more of. So rather than saying I don't have any time, change the pitch. I don't have any team at the moment. I'm looking to build a team and hire some great people. So that is a way better pitch than I don't have time. I'm building a team. I don't have money. A much better pitch would be, at the moment we're raising investment. Right? It's the same thing, but it's a different way of saying it. Pitch for what you want, not what you don't want. The thing with professional speakers, if you want to get into speaking, you want to get known for a niche as well. So you want to really hammer a particular niche that you're known for. So some of the high-paid speakers that I know of who are speaking every single week, £5,000 a talk, not super well known, women in cybersecurity. So it's a talk about why women make great people for cybersecurity, how to make sure you can attract and retain and develop women in cybersecurity. And she's giving these talks like all over the world, having a great time, airfares, accommodation, lots of well-paid talks. Appointment setting, how to pick up the phone and book an appointment. Just a very clear niche, someone doing that. So focused in on a problem that people want to solve running weekly meetings. So how to run a really good weekly meeting, how to have an amazing 20 to 30 minute huddle with your team. And that is a really highly paid talk because, for bigger companies, they run weekly meetings and they don't get a lot out of them, and it's 7 or 8 people at a time or 10 people at a time, and it goes on for over an hour and it wastes 10 hours worth of paid time. So running weekly meetings is a very valuable thing. So if you can get known for a little tiny niche, a thing that you go and solve, a core problem that you can address, that's a powerful thing to get known for. The other thing to get known for is a signature method. So wealth dynamics was a signature method for understanding personality as it relates to wealth. 7 habits of highly effective people, obviously a really super well-known signature method of Stephen Covey. The breakthrough experience with John DeMartini, these were all signature methods that people came along because they wanted to hear about the method. How do you do this thing? I've built a lot of business off the back of having methods. So all of my books contain a method. Key Person of Influence has the 5 Ps. There's 6 steps to running campaigns and promotions in oversubscribed. 24 Assets is a methodology for understanding digital transformation. So my books are about unpacking a methodology, and often I get invited to come and speak in order to share that method. How can we apply that method in our business? So having a signature method is like a really powerful thing to get more talks. Any thoughts or comments or questions about pitching and getting speaking gigs or any of that sort of stuff, or having a micro niche?
How have you found your niches? What were your niches and how did you find them?
So a great question to ask around how do you find a niche is like, what's the most high value problem that you know how to solve? Often I'll ask people, what's the highest fee you ever got paid for the smallest amount of time? And what was it they asked you? What did they want you to come and solve? Or if I said, imagine someone pays you £1,000 for 40 minutes of your time to come in and teach them one thing, what do you think it would be that they would be asking you to teach them? Or have you done something that's really weird, different, strange? Very few people have done it before. And quite often, if you've got something like that, you probably take it for granted. So most of the time, the response that people give me is like, they say, yeah, but everyone knows how to do that. And I'm like, no, not everyone knows how to do that. You know the saying that the fish doesn't know the water because it's spent its whole life swimming in the water? So most of the time, whatever you have spent your whole life doing is extremely valuable, but you don't recognize it because you're just swimming around in it every single day. So you've got to kind of get some perspective and say, well, what is it that I know how to do? What's the really high valuable thing? And what's interesting is that everyone says, I want to cast a wide net, but actually what audiences want is like a really specific thing. So it's like, oh, I can help all people with all things, anytime, anywhere. And it's like, well, I'm not sure what to do with that. But, I can help, you've got quite a specific one, help men with dating, right? Is it men of a certain age or a particular geography or anything like that? Or is it just all men?
No, it's men between 28 and 43.
Between 28 and 43.
That's,
right?
being very specific.
Under 28 and you're going to be fine. Over 43, you're screwed, right? No, 28 to 43, you've got...
There's about...
Cool.
Based on my
I like it, but by the way, see what happens? Yeah. Like, you get specific and people are like, but why? What happens when you turn 43, right? So it's cool, right? So if you've got like a really clear, targeted micro niche, that's really powerful. And it's powerful because the reality is that even if you could do all things for all people, at the early stages, no one's coming to you asking for that. So you've got to get on the phone and pitch something, and therefore something that's niche and specific has quite a strong impact. So it's a better pitch, yeah.
Just a question, follow-up question to what she asked. If you are swimming in water and you're really struggling to find what it is that you're good at, do you have any tools or suggestions to help somebody who feels that way?
Yeah, so Well, so the first thing is I often start with an analogy. It's similar to the water one, but it's the idea that you're standing on a mountain of value. When you stand on a mountain, you can see everything but the mountain. So the first thing is to trust that you are standing on a mountain of value. And for someone who's really young and hasn't got a lot of experience, the mountain of value is youth. You know, the mountain of value is that you're young with a unique perspective and that you've got lots of energy and that Greta is not particularly old. She's leveraging her mountain of value, which is I'm a school kid who's worried about the environment, and that is a mountain of value because there's a lot of people who resonate with that. So it's the idea that you're not trying to be someone else, you're trying to tune into what you've got. And ideally you work with someone else to try and reflect back to you what they see, and you pay attention to conversations where you end up having deep and meaningful conversations with friends and they keep asking you stuff, right? So they might ask you about where you grew up, they might ask you about this particular problem that you solved, they might ask you, oh, how did you deal with that really challenging situation at work? And you might just chat about it and it's just like the easiest thing in the world, but actually if people keep asking about that and want to know more and more and more about it, that's a clue that could be part of the mountain of value. Cool, yeah.
Could I ask, in terms of prospecting for pitches, if you're in somewhat of an earlier stage and conferences are not on your horizon yet,
Yep.
where would you recommend looking to start that might give you a chance to practice and build something?
So the number one place I would start is to put on my own micro events where I actually, like once a month or once a quarter, put on a little event where I'm going to present something for 12 people around a table and then we'll have dinner or drinks. So that could be a micro event. What you might do is you might host a dinner and you give an opening 10 or 15 minute talk or a 10-minute talk and then let everyone chat. So actually they're coming there to talk to each other, but you start with an opening to the talk and talk about something that's interesting or that's relevant to the topic. There's meetups. So people who host meetups, about 4 years ago, they started hosting meetup and they thought this is the best thing ever and it's so cool. And then suddenly their meetup, got into a rhythm and now they get 40 people a month like clockwork. But it's like, oh, I've got to find a speaker every single month, and actually, they might want to do that. The other thing that you could do is you could go to a more established speaker, and you could say, I know of a meetup that's 100 people. Would you like to go and speak at that particular event? And then you contact the organizer and say, I actually have this really established speaker who's available. And if I can do the 10-15 minute intro or outro, then they'll come and speak as well. And basically you just get cheeky and be a bit cheeky about it. Yeah. Cool. All good? Okay, let's have a look at the next one. The next one is publishing. So publishing is really important for speakers because actually it's mostly people who've got a book that get speaking. Like a book and speaking goes hand in hand. It's so remarkable that almost always, if you talk to a promoter or a speaking agent or any of that sort of stuff, one of the first things they will ask is send me something you've written. So they might ask for a show reel, but 9 times out of 10 they'll say, send me the book. Because ultimately the book is kind of like the talking script. The other thing too, for a promoter, a book makes it easier to promote because you've already got an audience. There's a ton of copy in there that I can use for marketing materials if you've got a book. I can incentivize tickets with some books. It demonstrates that you've got valuable insights to share. People can sort of see the book is available. There's some reviews on Amazon, all of that sort of stuff. So a book is like the ticket to speaking. It's possibly one of the most important things to do. And it's not about lots of people reading the book. It's about people seeing the book and seeing that you've written the book. So a lot of the time people, who here knows that I've written a book, right? But who here has read my books? Okay, so it's about half the people who know I've written a book. So some of the, thank you for reading the books, that was great. Who here actually purchased my books? Yes. That's £12. So the book is all about this idea of ownership Well, you can hear I've got the Australian accent, right? So when we went to school, they tell us all about how we discovered all this land that didn't have anyone who owned it. And it's like, well, actually it kind of did, but they weren't teaching that when I was at school. And they said, yeah, and the way you got ownership of the land is you had to have a certificate that was a handwritten certificate. And if the guy came riding around, he wanted to see that you owned the land. And when you owned the land, then you could do whatever you like on the land. It's like, great. And the people who owned the land, who had one of these little certificates, you couldn't just say that I own this land. Those people made lots of money because of the ownership that they had because of that certificate. And that was because this is the agricultural age that they were in at the time. So we now live in the intellectual property age, the age of technology and intellectual property, IP, ideas, and that's the most valuable land that exists. And the way that you get a title deed to a piece of intellectual property is actually through copyright. So writing a book is about showing ownership over this particular land. And the amazing thing from a legal perspective is if you do write a book on something, you actually do immediately get something called copyright. You own the rights to what it is that you wrote by default. But I'll give you an example of how this works. I once got a tweet, and it was from a lady, and she said, I'm the head of learning and development at KPMG, and we want to have a chat with you about you coming in and delivering trainings to our senior team, like partners and directors and managers. And I'm like, okay, cool. And she says, can I meet with you? And I'm always a little bit cheeky if someone contacts me. So I'm like, look, I'm really too busy to go over to Canary Wharf. Do you want to come and meet me halfway? I'll meet you at Waterloo Station and we'll grab a coffee. And she's like, oh, okay, you sure you don't want to come to Canary Wharf? I'm like, I hate Canary Wharf. And she, okay, I'll better come to you then. So she came to me, and we had a meeting, and then eventually we had another meeting, and they booked me for like a lot of speaking at a full, really high rate. And so, by the way, how did you get in touch with me? And she said, well, what happened is that the big boss, the most senior partner at KPMG, we were having a big meeting around the table, and he banged his hand on the table, and he said, we need to have more of an entrepreneurial mindset. Right? As an organization, we're not taking enough risks. We've got to have more of an entrepreneurial mindset. And she said, oh, I hadn't seen him bang his hand on the table before. So I wrote down the words entrepreneurial mindset. And I thought, I better get on that. So she said, I went straight back to my desk and I Googled entrepreneurial mindset. And your book, Entrepreneur Revolution, came up because the subtitle is Develop an Entrepreneurial Mindset and Start a Business That Works. So I knew that you were the perfect speaker because it's on the front cover of your book. Right? And I said, out of curiosity, did you read the book? And she's like, no. I haven't got time to do that. Which is just as well because I do a lot of big corporate bashing in the book. So, but it's funny. That's a story about ownership, not about actually people reading the book. It's just demonstrating this is the thing that I know about. So the book that changes your life is not one that you read. I'm sure everyone in this room reads a dozen books or 3 dozen books per year, or you've got Audible books going at all time and all that sort of stuff. And most people are reading books because they love the idea of changing their life with a book, and they love reading an amazing book that gives them an amazing idea. I can tell you, having read hundreds of books, that nothing compares even close to the book that you write and put out there in the marketplace for the fact that it will change your life. So once you get a book out there, from that moment forward, you're an author, right? You have written something. A book is a way of organizing your thoughts. A book is a way of freeing up thinking space. You create a safe space for those ideas to live, and then you have more ideas. You actually get another set of ideas. I actually never set out to write 4 books, soon to be 5 books. What happened is I wrote 1 book, and then my brain went, oh, thank goodness, I can put down that thought. And then I was sitting there one day and went, oh, I'm going to write this other book about Entrepreneur Revolution. And then I thought, okay, 2 books is enough. I never want to do another book. I'm done with books. I've got 2 books. And then one day I'm like cruising along and I go, oh, oversubscribed. That's a great idea. That's kind of like the core philosophy as to how we've filled events. And I better write another book about that. And then I thought, okay, I'm done, completely done. 3 books. Who needs 3 books in a, I'm not J.K. Rowling here. It's like, And then one day I'm in a meeting and I map out this thing with the team, and I go, look, there's a list of about 7 major things that you got to do to get the digital transformation thing going, and I map them out. So in each one of those has got about 3 or 4 things. I go, so there's 24 things that we've got to get all of these 24 things right, and then we become unstoppable. And we started implementing it, and I kept talking about these 24 things, 24 assets. Well, that's got a good name. I like that. Oh shit! I'm gonna write another book again. But every single time I've written a book, life has changed and life's gotten better. And it's like every book has ended up with products attached to it. Every book's ended up with data attached to it. Every book has led to a game-changing opportunity. Every book has been part of a shift, a big shift in revenue. Every book has led to certain speaking engagements. So the book that changes your life is not one you read, it's one that you write. Yeah.
When you're writing these books, how are you managing your time between like speaking, getting clients, pitching? Because if you're starting out, would you say it's the right time to write a book, or would you wait until later on in your business development process?
I would be writing a book. You know what? Even if you're in the process of writing a book, let's say you come across someone who's an interesting personality and you say, hey, I'm actually writing a book on this particular thing. Would I be able to interview you? And they might ask, when's the book coming out? And you say, actually, I'm doing it as a passion project and I haven't set myself a tight deadline, but I'm just doing it and it will, it'll probably come out next year or the year after. But would you like to be in the book? And it's a great excuse to interview people. It's a great excuse to develop your thinking. So if you find it hard to do books, start writing blogs. A series of blogs can very quickly be repackaged up into the first third of a book. But just be writing and be producing. As a core principle, create, not consume. So here's one of the biggest things I've learned in my career, because people always ask, how do you get the energy and all of that sort of stuff. I've found that as a core idea, consuming actually sucks your energy. And the more you consume, the more you energy out, energy gone. Consuming movies, binge watching stuff, consuming the news, make you anxious. Consuming people, consuming the energy of others, that consumption mindset is exhausting. And what I've also found is that even though it's counterintuitive, it's the creative force when you're creating something that at the end of it you end up with more energy. On one condition. What's that?
That's your next.
Oh, it's in Entrepreneur Revolution. Create, not consume is one of the final chapters. But the only condition is that you complete it and stick it out there in the world. So what sucks your energy is 99% done, because 99% done is not done. So 99% of a blog, you've put the energy into creating it, but you get nothing back. So even if it's as simple as you post it on your LinkedIn profile, you post it on, a tweet, you make a video of it and you stick it on YouTube. So provided, even if it's bad, even if it's like rough, even if it's, prolific will beat perfect, but if you just keep producing and sticking it in the marketplace, that's actually quite energizing. So I disciplined myself with this simple idea where I went, if I've got time to read the news, I've got time to write an article that would go in a newspaper. If I've got time to watch television, I've got time to create a video that I could put on YouTube. If I've got time to listen to a podcast, I've got time to record a podcast. If I've got time to watch YouTube videos, I've got time to make YouTube videos. If I've got time to read a book, I've got time to write a book. And it's this signal to your brain that says enough's enough. I've consumed so much, I'm ready to start producing more. Now, what is interesting is that as you're producing, you hit roadblocks. And you go, actually, that is the extent of my knowledge on this topic. And then suddenly you go, all right, I need to read a book around that block. Or I need to start consuming some videos or some podcasts or some stuff around that particular thing which I don't know enough about. But you identify that and you start consuming almost as a way of finding ingredients to produce something. Like a chef who's going down to the market to buy fruit and vegetables and produce because they know they're looking for certain ingredients to put into the food that they're cooking that day. So it's just you get into a different type of consuming to create very rapidly. And you'd be amazed at how much energy that gives as opposed to the fairly destructive consumption.
That's a really good point, because I gave my client the task for this month that he consumes books like crazy. I said, you cannot read a book, you cannot listen to podcasts, nothing for the whole month.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, he has to write and publish a book, or write just like
Produce something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I bet he.
they're going, "Ugh."
Yeah. I bet he feels pretty good. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to ask, if you don't consume, how do you know you're not just putting out whatever's already out there and you're not different from what's already out there?
Well, for starters, it'll be yours. You'll have produced it. So by definition, it's different because you've created it. So if you genuinely wrote it, it'll be different. I don't necessarily think it'll be, not by default be good, but it'll be different because you made it. And the other thing too is your goal is not necessarily to be wildly different. So if I asked you, tell me what's the name of your best friend? Florence. And tell me 3 things that are great about Florence.
Inspirational, encouraging, and honest.
Honest. So I would say my best friend is inspirational, encouraging, and honest. So my best friend's no different to your best friend, right? So they both have those same qualities. But would you want to swap? Do you want Glenn? No, right? You don't want to swap. And I don't want Florence, just to be clear, right? But what's happened is that you've built a relationship with Florence. I built a relationship with Glenn. And even though your friend is doing a lot of and saying the same things and delivering the same sort of inspiration and support and all of those kind of things and encouragement, even though your friend's doing that for you, it doesn't necessarily mean that A, there's not room for someone else to be doing that too, and B, for me, that person's different. So it's kind of like everyone in this room wants to stand out, right? And it leads you to do silly things to stand out. So if you wanted to walk down Oxford Street and say, I want to stand out, one way to do that is to dress as a giant pink dinosaur or something like that, and that will make you stand out. You draw attention, but you'll stand out for the wrong reason. You won't be standing out for any good reason. You'll be standing out, people will go, oh, that's a weird person. I mean, it's London, so they won't give it a second thought. They'll just be like, Oxford Street. So you're standing out, but not in a good way. And the best way to stand out is if you've ever walked down Oxford Street, and what happens when you spot your friend? Right? How good is it if you hadn't been planning to see someone and you go, hey, Lazo, how you going? Right? And it's like you catch up and you might spot them across the street and you cross the street to go and see them. And it's just all positive. So the idea is that by putting content out there, by putting ideas out there, by sharing your story and yourself, it's not that your job is to try and be radically different, but it's just to build relationship. Even if you've got 20 people reading your stuff, those are 20 people who you're the friend. You're actually building some form of relationship. 20 very rapidly becomes 40, and 40 becomes 80, and 80 becomes 800, and 800 becomes 8,000.
I'm currently filming my own vlog. Are you willing to interview in that?
To be interviewed on your vlog?
Yeah.
Tonight?
Well, maybe.
It would be easy if it's after this, but yeah, sure. If it's easy.
You don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, what's it about?
About finding your place. So because I have many friends that moved abroad in different countries, and cross-cultural content is going on, and I'm basically interviewing them how they found their home and calling that place home.
Cool. Love it. Very nice.
How did you go about marketing your first book?
How did I go about marketing my first book? So I have a different philosophy on books that most people don't have. It's probably more of an entrepreneur's philosophy, and it's the idea that the old view of books is that authors sell books, and the new view of books is that books are business development for authors and for their businesses. So once I got my head around that, so very, very simple philosophy for me was I used to, in the course of building business, I used to have a lot of coffee meetings with people. And I would do it at a pretty reasonable, nice, high-end members club or something like that. So essentially, I would pay £1,500 a year to join a members club, and then that would give me the right to buy coffees for £4 per coffee. And what would happen is that I would identify people that I want to have a coffee with, and I would try and get in touch with them and book a meeting, or my team would, and we'd drop emails and we'd connect and we'd do all that, and I'd have a PA who's like trying to coordinate this stuff, and then we'd go and we'd meet and have a coffee, and I'd of course pick up the coffees, and it'd be £8 between the two of us. And essentially I realized that actually that was a great strategy, it was a good thing to do, but it just wasn't very scalable. Like it was pretty awesome to meet with great people in the industry and great people I could partner with, but you would have 10 coffees and do business with 1 or 2 people, etc., etc., etc. So as soon as I twigged that, wait a second, I'm happy to buy coffee for someone and myself, and that's, call it £6, £8, plus getting to and from, plus a membership, plus a PA, etc., etc., etc. And I suddenly just kind of went, it's mathematically working for me to be spending at least £10 hard cash on a meeting and my time. And as soon as I twigged, I went, I'll just print 1,000 books and send them to everyone. And today, on average, we give away 600 books a month. So my team, we run ads to certain people, we email certain people, we have stuff on the website. If you want a key person of influence book, just get in touch with the team and they'll send you one. They have targets to try and get that out, because seriously, if you want to email info@dent.global and say, can I please have a book, they'll send you one. They'll be happy to. I can't physically meet 600 people in a month, but I can send 600 copies of books out. When you start printing them at 1,000 copies at a time, they're about £2.50 a book and about £1.50 to send. So they are basically a cup of coffee, So in which case, time seems linear, but actually it's not. Like if you record a 1-hour video and 1,000 people watch that 1-hour video, you've spent 1,000 hours with people. In effect, coming and speaking tonight, there's 60 people in the room. I'm actually spending 60 hours on stage effectively, because it's leveraged. So the ability to meet at the moment, the weird thing too is the more books I gave away, the more I sold. So my book sales is 1 book sells every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day, round the clock, or non-stop, and it has done for the last 6-7 years. So it's basically 4 an hour, 4 an hour, 4 an hour, and they keep selling it. And I'm like, why are you buying them? We give them away. But people.
Is that word of mouth?
Yeah, people read it because we give away 600 a month, and then people read it and then they go and talk to a friend, and the friend just goes on Amazon and buys it. So so it's just leverage.
How do you find a publisher?
So there's 2 types of publishers. There's traditional publishers, and traditional publishers. I'm published by Wiley, which is a fairly big publisher. They're very slow. They take about 18 months to publish a book from idea, from contract to book on the shelf. And the deal is very much really built around selling books. So the frustration I have with Entrepreneur Revolution and Oversubscribed, which are with Wiley, is I don't give away a lot of those, because I, as the author, get a 15% discount off the cover. So and I get 15% of the sale price. So effectively, it's £10 cover. I get them for £8.50, and I get £1 back eventually on my royalty commissions or whatever it is. So roughly speaking, I'm effectively buying the things for £7.50 or £7 a book. So if I want to give away 1,000, I've got to spend 7,000 effectively on books, as opposed to owning your own rights to the book with something called hybrid publishing, where you work with an experienced publisher, someone who's actually been in the industry and knows how to do everything, and you actually pay for them to help you produce a good quality book. So in that situation, rather than getting a £2,000 or a £3,000 or a £4,000 advance, you'll actually pay someone else £3,000 or £4,000 to work with you to produce a book, but then you own the rights. You get twice as much commission on every sale, plus you can print them really cheaply for about £2.50. And then giving away 1,000 books for £2,000 is a lot different to giving away 1,000 books for £7,000. So it adds up real fast. Yep. Getting paid. So a few things about getting paid for speaking. Number one, your value is determined by your ability to deliver a return on investment for someone else. So one thing I find really frustrating is there's this saying out there called get paid what you're worth. Has anyone heard that saying? You should get paid what you're worth. Well, the truth is you're not worth anything. Like, the truth is that realistically, if you're an employee, you have a protected minimum wage. So maybe that's £10 in London. So you're, okay, as an employee, you're worth £10 an hour as a protected minimum wage. If you go into entrepreneurship, there's no protection on what you're worth. The entrepreneurship doesn't care if you spend 1,000 hours and earn nothing. It doesn't care if you spend 1,000 hours and lose 100,000 or $1 million. So there is no protected worth. You don't have a worth. And I also think this whole idea of get paid what you're worth is actually quite a obnoxious thing to say in a world where some people are on £2 a day and some people are on, thousands of pounds. It kind of implies that some people must be worth different amounts, and I don't believe in that. I think we're all worth whatever we want to, whatever we can go out there and hustle into existence. But ultimately, the reason I get paid a lot of money is because I go out and demand a lot of money, and I work for a lot of money, and I pitch for a lot of money, and I built an ecosystem of businesses that deliver a lot of money, but it's not because I'm fundamentally worth anything different to anyone else. So I'm quite comfortable with the idea that I'm not worth anything. So the idea with that is that your worth goes up as your ability to deliver return on investment for someone else goes up. So if I contact someone who spends 100 million a year on a particular product and I say, look, I can save you 3%, 3 million on that because I've found a way of doing it, well then actually, if I can say I can quantify the 3 million, and if I show you and implement it and you're happy with it and we sign off on it, I'll get half and you get half, you get a 1.5 million saving and I get a 1.5 million fee. Well, effectively, my ability to deliver a return on investment to them would dictate potentially a 1.5 million fee for something. It's not because I'm worth anything, it's because I've been able to deliver a return on investment for someone else. So there's a client who I have who pays me pretty high rates, £10,000 plus per day to go overseas, to fly in, to give a talk, to fly out, have a great time, 10 grand, no overheads, no risk. It's a great deal. But the reason for that is because in that particular city, I've got lots of readers who want to see me speak, and that particular promoter can make money off the back of that. So last time I went there, 700 people showed up and paid €300 a head. So they made 210,000 and paid me 10,000. Right? So you heard 10,000 and went, oh, that's pretty good. But actually, is it? Who's got the better deal? That promoter figured out that he could make a lot of money off me and is happy to pay me 10 grand for a return on investment because he's making so much. I've got another client who pays me 5,000 to fly in, fly out. I kind of enjoy those ones because it's a bit of time out of my business, bit of thinking time and all that. I fly in, fly out to Amsterdam, but he's got his own special business development group, and I know that I can't really charge more than 5 grand for him because there's no way he can monetize that. I know his numbers, I know how his business works, and the return on investment works at about 5 grand. I'm happy to do it 3-4 times a year. He's happy to do it at that rate, so we've agreed something like that. But ultimately, your real worth is actually what you're worth to the other person, the return on investment that you can generate for someone else. So you have to get good at figuring out where does someone else get the return on investment? Like, how does me showing up make somebody else money? And if you can answer that question really well, you get paid a lot to speak. You get paid more and more to speak. So the real trick is not to somehow imagine that you're worth $1 million or imagine that you're worth this particular amount. The real trick is to be able to quantify it, to be able to show perhaps a spreadsheet, to be able to show a breakdown of return on investment, but to really be clear, I can deliver this return on investment for you. I can go into your organization and get these 12 employees to make an extra 10 grand for the company each. That's 120,000. I know someone who gets paid 100,000 a day to speak because they speak in front of audiences of 100 and gets paid 10,000 euros to get someone else, if he can inspire these people to follow their passion and they quit the organization. Because this organization can't fire people who have been there for a certain amount of time in the EU. So he turns up and delivers a talk about passion and purpose and all of this sort of stuff, and through an agency gets 10,000 per person who quits. Because it's actually worth, the average settlement for trying to fire someone and manage them out badly is 30 to 40,000. So for a large organization to get someone to quit for 10 grand, if they're dead wood, great. You know, the fact that they quit and followed their passion, everyone's a winner. Right? But on average 10 people quit. You put him in front of 100 people and he will inspire 10 people to quit within the next 30 days. So it's 100 grand a day to talk. Right? Everyone's a winner. So the idea here is he can quantify. You spend $30,000 trying to get these people out of your organization on average. I can do it for 10. It's a third of the cost that it currently costs you. Let's do it. Everyone's like, great. No one cares that he's earning 100 grand a day. They care that he's getting 10 grand to do something that costs 30. So your value is your ability to deliver an ROI. The next thing is your ability to develop a product ecosystem. A product ecosystem is really important. Some stuff that you give away as gifts, right? Videos, your vlog, all of that sort of stuff. You give it away as a gift. It's just great value, and you just put it out there. Some stuff you charge below market value, well below market value. You know, it's something that is worth 400, but you do it for 40 as a way to get known, to get a first transaction. Some stuff is your core business. It's what you really get charged, what you really charge for. It's the core of your business. It's the main thing that delivers return on investment for the clients. You never discount it. It's the main thing. It's BMW's cars. It's KPMG's auditing, right? So it's the core of the business. And then product for clients is the stuff that you then do with your clients on a long-term basis. So you need to have this product ecosystem. You've all interacted with these product ecosystems before. So if we said Apple, you download iTunes, you bought your iPod, you then bought yourself a MacBook, and then you started doing the iTunes store, right? So we've all done that. That's how we all became Apple people. Sorry. Oh, just a scratch. Careful doing that at an auction. You just bought a Banksy for like 7 million. Right? So podcast, video, books and events, training, mentoring, those, it's having a product ecosystem. The reason I made a lot of money from speaking was it was just generating business. Today, I've got several businesses. So I've got a film production business and a book publishing business, an IT business, a data business, the accelerator business, and pretty much every time I turn up and talk, somehow it ends up as 50 grand. It just because someone wants a video, someone wants a book, someone wants to do something with us. There's enough business going on that it just somehow stuff happens and it magically turns into money. And that's the idea. What you really want is to not have to worry about charging for a talk, but to have a product ecosystem around you.
Where you don't really have much experience and you have no credibility, for example, to that level. And how do you stress test that model to make sure that you're not being delusional? Because sometimes you like an idea and you think it's amazing,
Yeah.
when you put it out there, it's not really received very well.
The best way is to go and work with an existing organization that's got traction and to go and sell for them. And if you can sell one-to-one, then you can sell to small groups, then you can sell from stage. And the easiest way to shortcut around credibility is work for a company that's already got credibility. You'll find that there's a lot of businesses that have great products and services that you love, and what they really desperately want is someone out there talking about it. And if you said, I want to, like a lot of professional speakers began as sales reps repping products and talking to groups about products, and they clocked up a lot of time on stage. You'd be shocked at how many professional speakers were at one point selling from stage, whether it be for a large company or a small company or a franchise business or something like that, but they were out there talking about someone else's products.
So do you have to start off being the salesperson? Is that
It's handy because ultimately the reason that you're taking the stage is to influence someone to do something that they wouldn't otherwise do. If you're a motivational speaker, you're actually asking people to go and do something they wouldn't otherwise do. If you're a speaker who talks about good governance, you're getting people to do something that they might not have done but for seeing you speak. So you are influencing. You're trying to influence behavior. So ultimately, it is even the most high energy motivational speakers, it's a sales role. You're selling people on an idea that they wouldn't have done without seeing you speak. So actually sales is a great place to start. But as far as credibility is concerned, you said about how do I shortcut credibility? You go work for a company that has credibility. If you are out there talking about Microsoft, then you got loads of credibility. That's an extreme example, but even a small business that's got clients and case studies and stories, if you're out there talking about it, so find a business that you love, that you're passionate about, go and talk to them and say, I want to get out there and start talking about what it is that you're doing. And it's a good shortcut. The other shortcut, if you can, is to co-speak with existing professional speakers who have got lots of credibility, and you take on all the stress and difficulty of putting on events, hosting events, finding venues, and all of that in exchange for sharing the stage. So that's another way. Yep.
I see just podcasts and video. I don't see like social media, Facebook or Instagram. Can you run that?
It tends to be, because it's so ubiquitous, it tends to be that it's not a great gift. Like when someone's sharing their Instagram feed, it doesn't strike me as a gift, as in like, wow, you're really generously giving me something.
What about their captions if they are giving something extra?
There's so much of that. There are some exceptions. So for example, I'm testing a new concept at the moment where I've put together just a little group called the Oversubscribed group. We've got 1,300 people, entrepreneurs in the group, and all I'm doing is just when I've got time, I do a 20-minute talk on getting your business oversubscribed. You're in the group, and it's just gift, as in like there's no call to action, there's no do this thing or buy this thing or any of that sort of stuff. It's just here's another idea, here's another example. And what has already started to happen out of those 1,300, people have already started getting in touch and asking questions. What more can we do? How can I work with you? How do I do more of this sort of stuff? So it's actually creating a buzz of goodwill and energy that is ultimately what a gift should do. Cool. So if it's like that, that would work. Yep.
You mentioned shortcutting credibility and
What? Just quickly, what time do you want me to finish?
Tomorrow?
Keep going.
15. Pardon? Yeah.
Sorry, I'll start again. So on the point you made about shortcutting credibility, you said you can, find a credible company perhaps to partner with.
Yep.
In the terms of, because I know, you're mainly talking about entrepreneurship and people who work for themselves, but what about in the employment world? Let's say, for instance, you felt like you were an expert in your field and you found a credible company, let's say it's Microsoft, you head in and things are great, but you can see how they can be improved.
Yep.
You feel your opinion is really valuable and you can increase their return on investment. what advice or approaches?
So you pitch, and you pitch a low risk first step. So you pitch, can I deliver a small training for 4 people? You know, and then after you've done that, you've delivered training for Microsoft. Yeah, cool. Profile. So what's happening at the moment, thanks to technology, is we've got a magnet in the middle of the world sucking incomes towards a global average. It's not $50 a day, it's more like $100 a day, say 26,000 US dollars. That is amazing news if you're in the Philippines right now. If you're in the Philippines right now, every year incomes are going up because every real estate agent has a PA in the Philippines. Every graphic design studio has got a back office in the Philippines. Every film production business has got a back office in the Philippines. If you're an accounting firm, you've now got a back office in Bangalore. So it's brilliant news if you're in Bangalore, it's brilliant news if you're in the Philippines, all of that sort of stuff. If you're in Britain or the US or Australia, suddenly you're in competition with all these people globally for this global average. And these people, you know, just in different countries, they've got a master's degree, they're amazing at what they do, they work on whichever time zone, they speak perfect English. So, you know, they're, in all ways, they're brilliant people. But it's putting this massive global pressure towards this middle. But at the same time, what's happening is that we're actually got this other magnet right at the top called the $5,000 a day magnet. And if you've got a brand, if you've got a profile, if you're seen as the go-to person for something, income's just going up like crazy. So I know a 22-year-old woman who she's earning 750 grand a year. She's got 140,000 Instagram followers. She creates courses and talks and all this sort of stuff for them. But it's her plus 2 or 3 other people on her team, £750,000 per year. You know, maybe 150 to 200,000 worth of overhead. Like, you know, so she's in that category. I'm seeing so many people, if you've got a bit of a brand, it's getting ridiculous how much money is in that. So you've got to build a bit of a profile. People, when they Google you, they've got to go, yep, I want to work with you. You are who Google says you are. So you're either going to show up as, wow, this person really is the person for this particular topic, or this person should not be, we should not be working with them, look at the negative reviews, or it's crickets, it's tumbleweed. You know, it's a LinkedIn profile, it's a Twitter account with 180 followers, and you sit there and you go, they're just, you know, we're not going to pay above the odds. We're going to pay basically what the basic rate is. So you are who Google says you are. Yeah.
Would you mind going back to the slide? I wanted to ask you something with us here. Is there a connection between that magnet that the people at the top are sucking up their income? Is there a connection between that and the point you mentioned earlier about being a consumer? Is there a connection?
Well, these people up the top are high producers. They're producing media all the time. Content. They produce more in a week than most people do in a year or a month. You know, they're just really outpacing the amount of videos and posts and images and all of that sort of stuff. You know, they're prolifically producing. They're writing books. They're creating podcasts. And because it's digital, the thing with digital has 3 superpowers that most people haven't cottoned on to. So it immediately transcends space. So as soon as you upload something that's digital, it's everywhere all at once. So you upload in London and it's immediately in Lisbon and Lagos and like everywhere that starts with L. And then it transcends time. So if you upload something today, it'll be available in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years. It transcends wear and tear. So 1 million downloads, 1 billion downloads, doesn't matter. It's going to continue to be the same quality. So with digital, you transcend time, space, and wear and tear. And every time you do that, you're actually producing this thing that's out there, essentially bringing you business. And the reason that we're getting such a 2-speed economy is that if you've got someone who's had 100,000 downloads of a podcast, there's 100,000 people who feel like they know you, like you, trust you, want to work with you. And that spins around. And then there's these videos and they're spinning around. And then there's some books that are just getting downloaded. You get enough of these digital things just spinning out there, and the opportunities come like flooding in. And the biggest issue when you hit this side is just curation. Like, how do you figure out quickly what you should and shouldn't do with your time? You've got to get good at not finding opportunities, but curating so that you can quickly say no to stuff and not say no to bad stuff and say yes to the good stuff. So yeah, they're definitely producers. Cool. So 4 big things for building your profile. Social media, obviously, all the big ones. Get yourself on there and producing stuff. At least pick one, 2 or 3 that you can focus on at first. Awards and associations. So win awards, get associated with big trusted brands, big trusted people. So we win a lot of awards. Live events, speaking at live events, hosting live events, emceeing live events, being on panels, and traditional media. So a lot of the traditional media, traditional media is digital media, but they still need to fill their space that they've got available. They're looking for quality content. It's not that hard to become a Forbes contributor or an entrepreneur.com contributor or any of those kind of things. You know, if you're the expert that you say you are, contact Forbes and say, can I contribute 10 articles a year? And they'll put you on the website as a Forbes contributor, and that goes a long way for getting booked for speaking as well. So this is the profile building stuff. It's not about being in the spotlight, it's about becoming a spotlight. So being in the spotlight is narcissistic. It's like, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm in the spotlight. And it's disgusting. No one wants that. Or no one is attracted to someone who wants that. But someone who says, don't look at me, look at that. Look at that thing that's happening. Look at this amazing trend that's going on. And if the more you go, don't look at me, look at that, then everyone goes, yeah, cool, I'll go on that ride with you. I'll go with you on that. So don't crave the spotlight. Try to become a spotlight for whatever it is that you want to do. But people love personal brands way more than company brands. You've got a huge advantage just by being a personal brand. Branson, 3.9 million on Instagram, and this might be a bit old actually, but only 169,000 for Virgin, 12 million on Twitter, 240,000 for Virgin. Branson follows me on Twitter. I was pretty stoked with that. Yeah. It's like, he must have just in the early days gone, look, follow, and never accidentally unfollowed. He only follows 1,000 people. It's great. Partnerships. Look for ways to enhance your brand, the products that you can offer, and the distribution that you can reach through partnerships. So someone already has plenty of money, contacts, fame, know-how, time, credibility. Go out and partner with them. Figure out how to put together that partnership. So for example, Nike doesn't say, let's train up one of our juniors to win Wimbledon. They say, who already wins Wimbledon? That'll enhance our brand in the tennis space. Products, we don't need to figure out how to make t-shirts. Fruit of the Loom already knows how to do that. Walmart already knows distribution, so we can do that. Victoria's Secret, let's get a famous model. Let's get the products manufactured. Do you know where they manufacture the products? Do you know Victoria's Secret, where it's manufactured?
China?
It's not China. It's the US prison system. It's so weird. Stop it, yeah. The international human rights law says you're not allowed to come up with cruel or unusual punishments, but that is actually a bit cruel and unusual, isn't it? They get these prisoners in maximum security manufacturing bras. Anyway, it's twisted.
That's a great idea.
George Clooney is the brand for Nespresso. The product is made by Megamix and distributed through places like Selfridges. Nespresso was actually a dead brand. It was started in 1976 and reinvented in 2006. So those are the big 5 things that you focus on. We've done this with so many different people, reinventing their brands, getting them up as key people of influence. So this is all about positioning yourself as a key person of influence. It's not necessarily good speakers who get speaking gigs. It's people who are well positioned as key people of influence who get lots of speaking gigs. And if you want to know more, email info@dent.global and they'll send you a book. And I'll love to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.